I filled a vase with water. I filled a vase with water. I am filled with happiness now. I am filled with happiness now. I became filled with interest for Thailand. I became filled with interest for Thailand. That street is filled with bikes. That street is filled with bikes. That room is filled with gas. That room is filled with gas. We are filled with love. We are filled with love. Her eyes filled with tears. Her eyes filled with tears. I was suddenly filled with sorrow. I was suddenly filled with sorrow. My heart filled with joy. My heart filled with joy. She filled a bottle with water. She filled a bottle with water. His mind was filled with happy thoughts. His mind was filled with happy thoughts. His bag was filled with water. His bag was filled with water. The park is filled with children. The park is filled with children. We were filled with joyful expectation. We were filled with joyful expectation. The room was filled with people. The room was filled with people. The garden was filled with flowers. The garden was filled with flowers. The basket was filled with strawberries. The basket was filled with strawberries. I filled this glass with milk. I filled this glass with milk. I'm filled with love for you. I'm filled with love for you. Each day is filled with surprises. Each day is filled with surprises. I was filled with expectations. I was filled with expectations. The hallways were suddenly filled with sound. The hallways were suddenly filled with sound. That is filled with nostalgic memories. That is filled with nostalgic memories. I'm the type of person who is filled with curiosity. I'm the type of person who is filled with curiosity. My heart is filled with your kindness. My heart is filled with your kindness. That is a photo filled with a lot of lively movement. That is a photo filled with a lot of lively movement. Her heart was filled with grief. Her heart was filled with grief. The auditorium was filled with an air of solemnity. The auditorium was filled with an air of solemnity. The stands were crowded with spectators. The stands were crowded with spectators. The bookcase was crammed with technical books. The bookcase was crammed with technical books. The room was filled with peals of laughter from the children. The room was filled with peals of laughter from the children. The freshmen's hearts were filled with happy expectation. The freshmen's hearts were filled with happy expectation. The bag is filled with sundries. The bag is filled with sundries. The pool slowly filled with water. The pool slowly filled with water. The box was filled with cookies. The box was filled with cookies. A balloon expands as it is filled with air. A balloon expands as it is filled with air. I was filled with joy when I saw her. I was filled with joy when I saw her. Her mind is filled with dreams of becoming an actress. Her mind is filled with dreams of becoming an actress. He was filled with anxiety about his wife's return. He was filled with anxiety about his wife's return. The streets are filled with an air of exoticism. The streets are filled with an air of exoticism. The port is filled with vessels of all kinds. The port is filled with vessels of all kinds. The room was often filled with laughter. The room was often filled with laughter. It is filled with exciting action scenes. It is filled with exciting action scenes. My restaurant is filled with customers every night. My restaurant is filled with customers every night. The store is filled with well-selected items. The store is filled with well-selected items. The digital glossary is filled with information. The digital glossary is filled with information. The hall was filled with a friendly atmosphere. The hall was filled with a friendly atmosphere.